a young talented student, and her writing professor develop a flirtatious dynamic. And this story begins. Cairo is a highly talented young writing student who lives alone in a massive house since her parents are constantly traveling. Over time, she has grown used to their absence, finding comfort in literature and immersing herself in stories to ease her loneliness. Today, she is especially excited. She's starting a new class where she will meet a renowned writer and teacher, Jonathan Miller, a man with several published books to his name. Wanting to make a good impression, she arrives early, only to find that Jonathan is just as punctual. He is surprised to see her there ahead of time, and as they exchange greetings, Cairo smiles and slowly begins to open up to him. Cairo casually mentions that she has already read all the books the professor assigned over the break. A lengthy and demanding list. Astonished, Miller pauses, clearly impressed by her dedication. Before he can respond, Cairo's best friend, Winnie, suddenly appears and playfully drags her away to grab some snacks before class begins. Left alone, Miller, now even more intrigued by his student, curiously flips through her books. To his surprise, he discovers that Cairo also reads novels with themes of erotic romanticism. Just then, his colleague Boris notices the book in Miller's hands, smirks, and without hesitation, begins reading a few lines aloud. As Boris continues browsing through Cairo's collection, he makes another surprising discovery. She has also been reading books written by Miller himself. What catches his attention even more is that these books, much like her other selections, have strong romantic themes. When Miller learns of this, he is both surprised and intrigued. Later that evening, as he returns home, Miller hopes to spend some quality time with his wife Beatrice. However, she is completely absorbed in her work, barely acknowledging him. Despite this, he shares his discovery about his new student reading his books, expressing both surprise and a hint of pride. Beatrice finally gives him some of her attention, and for a moment it seems like their night might take a pleasant turn, until, just as the night seems to be taking a pleasant turn, a sudden phone call ruins the moment. Beatrice is pulled back into work, leaving Miller alone with his thoughts, wondering what the next school day will bring. The following morning, Miller and his colleague Boris sit outside the school, sipping coffee and chatting about life. Their conversation drifts to the dense woods nearby, jokingly speculating that ghosts might be lurking among the trees. Just then, Cairo appears, having taken her usual path through the forest to get to class. Meanwhile, Winnie finds herself in an unusual conversation with Professor Boris. Later, when Cairo and Winnie talk privately, Cairo confesses a surprising plan. She is trying to seduce Coach Boris, using an innocent excuse as a cover. Cairo is left puzzled. Winnie wants Boris to place her in his physics class, but Cairo has always known her friend to be interested in women. Later that evening, the two girls have a long and candid conversation at home. During their talk, Cairo confesses that, despite her academic success, she feels like she has never achieved anything exciting beyond being the best, but also the most boring student. Amused, Winnie playfully suggests that she should experience something truly worth writing about, like a secret romance between a teacher and a student. Cairo bursts into laughter at the idea, but in that moment, Winnie unexpectedly admits that deep down she might actually want her first time to be with Professor Boris and not with a random guy who is only experimented with racy videos. Winnie also suggests that Cairo try something with Professor Miller, pointing out that she has noticed the way he looks at her, different from how he looks at other students. At first, Cairo laughs off the idea, dismissing it as nonsense. But as their conversation continues, they both start to wonder if there might be some truth to it. Later, as Cairo reads through the pages of one of Miller's books, she finds herself unable to stop thinking about him. His words take on a new meaning, stirring emotions she hadn't considered before. After class, Miller asks to speak with her alone, setting the stage for a conversation that could change everything. During their conversation, Miller encourages Cairo to attend a poetry reading that takes place every Saturday, assuring her that she will love it. He then takes a moment to praise her work, congratulating her on a recent piece of writing that he found truly impressive, even admitting that he memorized some of her lines. Believing in her talent, Miller presents her with a special challenge. He asks her to write a short story in the style of her favorite author. If she does well, she will pass the entire semester. To Cairo, it feels like the perfect task, one that excites her deeply. Without hesitation, she agrees, eager to prove herself. Then, with a spark of enthusiasm, she reveals to him. Cairo surprises Miller by revealing that she has read his books, leaving him speechless as she flawlessly quotes a passage, just as he had memorized lines from her writing. The professor is visibly delighted and admits that the book she quoted was his very first work, one that holds deep sentimental value for him. As their conversation deepens, Miller confesses that he hasn't written anything new in a long time. Ever since getting married, his life has become more routine, lacking the inspiration he once had. Cairo, however, refuses to accept this as an excuse. She insists that he isn't out of ideas, he's simply uninspired. With a playful yet determined look, she challenges him to write again. Miller and his students seem much more at ease around each other, their interactions becoming more relaxed. Cairo confesses to Winnie that, although Miller didn't say a word about her new look, she could tell he was pleased. His expression had said it all. Not long after, Cairo informs Miller that she has chosen to write her story in the style of Henry Miller. The professor is taken aback, knowing that Henry Miller's works are known for their deep romantic and erotic themes. He can't help but wonder what exactly Cairo has in mind. Cairo searches for her phone but can't find it anywhere, realizing she must have left it behind. She quickly dials her number from her home line, and to her surprise, Miller answers. He had accidentally taken it with him, mixed in with his things. Cairo tells him she really needs her phone, and Miller, ever polite, assures her that he'll bring it to her home since he hasn't left for his vacation yet. His wife's work Miller, frustrated by his wife's demands, moves to a private space after she tells him she's busy with work and won't let him concentrate. Seeking a moment of solitude, he prints out Cairo's story and begins reading. As he delves into her writing, he feels an unexpected excitement. The story follows the passionate dynamic between a teacher and his student, mirroring their own interactions but intensified into a novelized version. The way Cairo has crafted the emotions and tension in the story makes the reading far more stirring than he anticipated. The next morning, Cairo anxiously waits in the classroom, eager for Miller's reaction. Miller, frustrated, admits that assigning Cairo a creative writing piece was a mistake. Angrily, Cairo pushes back, insisting that he was the one who inspired the story, that he was the reason the fantasy even existed in the first place. She reminds him that he let her cross boundaries, whether he meant to or not. Miller, his patience wearing thin, forcefully reiterates that their relationship is strictly that of a teacher and student. Whatever misconceptions she has, he tells her, it's up to her to correct them. His harsh words cut deep. Hurt and humiliated, Cairo glares at him before delivering one final blow, calling him mediocre and accusing him of lacking the courage to be anything more than what he is. Then, without another word, she turns and walks away. Before storming out of the classroom, Cairo delivers a final warning. She hopes Miller understands what he has done because the consequences could be far greater than he realizes, perhaps even turning into something significant. Fuming, she exits without another word. But before leaving the school entirely, she slips her story into a school administrator's mailbox. That evening, Miller returns home, exhausted from the confrontation. He vents to his wife about his terrible day, mentioning his student and the provocative story she wrote. Intrigued, his wife asks to hear more, and as he describes Cairo's writing, the mood between them shifts. The intensity of the story, mixed with lingering tension, rekindles an old spark between them. Just as things begin to heat up, an unexpected knock at the door interrupts them. It's Boris. Meanwhile, Cairo drowns her frustration in drinks with Winnie, still reeling from Miller's rejection. As the alcohol takes effect, the mood shifts and the two friends take a series of playful, yet compromising photos. Winnie, ever the troublemaker, decides to send them to Boris, adding another layer to their growing web of chaos. Elsewhere, Miller's troubles deepen as he is unexpectedly summoned by the school administration. His stomach tightens. He already suspects why. Cairo's story has been read, and now they have questions. At home, his wife senses his distress and pointedly asks if anything has happened between him and his student. Miller firmly denies it, but the weight of the situation lingers between them. Both Cairo and Miller soon find themselves in separate meetings, facing a barrage of inquiries. As they answer questions, the tension mounts, forcing them to confront the undeniable impact of the story they've created, both on the page and in reality. During questioning, Miller explains that he rejected Cairo's advances, but Cairo refuses to see it that way, insisting that he simply underestimated her. Meanwhile, Winnie, always looking for an upper hand, threatens to turn against Cairo in favor of the teacher. But Cairo quickly shuts her down, reminding her that if she tries, she'll have no choice but to expose Winnie's relationship with Boris, bringing down not just one, but two teachers in the process. In the end, Cairo channels everything she has experienced into an essay, seeing it as her greatest achievement. For her, the real victory isn't about Miller or the scandal, it's about transforming her emotions into something meaningful. Meanwhile, Miller, caught in a storm of personal and professional turmoil, seems to have found something unexpected, new inspiration. And for the first time in years, he feels the urge to write again. Years later, the final scene unfolds. Miller and Cairo stand face to face once more. The tension between them is unmistakable, though time has undoubtedly changed them both. They are attending what appears to be a formal school hearing, where the fate of the teacher will finally be decided. Their gazes lock, filled with unspoken words and unresolved history. And so this story comes to an end, one chapter closing, while the consequences of their past remain forever etched in time.